Hey, Devos with Ken on Fridays here. A few days ago, I was reading in the book of Ephesians, very familiar passage. Just read a few verses, then tell you what the Lord spoke to me about. Typical passage, great passage, lots of truths there. It says 4 verse 25, therefore, having put away falsehood, let each of you speak the truth as his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Makes sense. Be angry, don't sin, don't let the sun go down your anger, and give no opportunity for the devil. Now, I've taught on those, and that's what I was focused on. So I was just interacting with the Lord on that, how to speak the truth in love, how to watch my anger, make sure I'm not angry, that kind of thing, And then this is what he said to me. And I'm not creating a doctrine, but this is what he said to me personally. He said, Ken, you missed the key verse. It's an example, but there's also supercultural application. And then he pointed me to the very next verse, and I never looked at it this way before. It says, and it's right after that, it says, let the thief steal no longer, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he might have something to share with anyone in need. And so I started praying about that, and I realized, and then God spoke to me, really, it's a reversal. If you're vulnerable in a certain way, or you typically respond in a certain way, or you typically sin a certain sin, or you have a certain behavior or pattern, he wants you to reverse. So if you are a thief, God doesn't say just stop stealing. He wants you to go out and get a job so that you have an abundance, so that you can actually give to other people. So it's like he wants you to be generous. If you struggle with stealing and being dishonest in that way, God's remedy for that is not just to not steal. Like in Canada, we play hockey. So if you're, I guess it applies to any sport, if you're always on defense, you're just trying to keep the puck out of the goal or keep the football from crossing the goal line, you're eventually going to lose. You have to have an offense. And in the kingdom or in Christianity or in following Jesus, we've got to move from defense, trying not to sin, trying not to be angry, trying not to steal, trying not to lust, trying not to gossip, trying not to work too much, whatever. He actually wants us to do the exact opposite so that we're never vulnerable here. Back in the old days, I'm talking Old Testament times, and it's kind of not a bad idea, but they kind of took it too far. The Pharisees actually had what they called fence laws. So here's what the law says, and then they'd create another law, so they don't even if they violated that, they'd never actually get to violating God's law. The problem is they made their fence laws doctrine for everyone else, and they missed the heart in it all. But it's not a bad principle. So I've also been thinking about the Lord's Prayer again. And I know I mentioned this on an earlier devotion, but it says, lead me far from temptation. And so I'll tell you something. If you're a generous person and you've got excess, if you've done what God says, if you used to be a thief and you now work hard and you save up so that you can bless other people, you're not going to steal again. If you used to struggle with lust and now you are seeking purity, but also helping young men in that area, or you're speaking in a gym or you're a youth leader and you're helping young men, you're likely not going to fall back on that unless you're a real hypocrite or whatever. If you used to gossip and then you do a reversal and you actually begin to speak blessing on people, you're not going to fall back into gossip. I mean, you can if you want, but it's going to be hard. And so it's a reversal. And I just thought how brilliant that is. And you can apply that to any area of your life, because you can't just, minimize temptation and sin by trying not to. You've actually got to raise above. And I was listening to a pastor from Africa a little while ago, James Qualia, I think his name is, and he used to be in the occult, a warlock actually, or a high witch, whatever. And he became a Christian, and now he's a pastor. And he said this amazing concept. If you're trying to get healing or freedom in a certain area of your life, and if you stay in that realm, and if you don't ascend to the next level, you will always end up defeated. And so the part of the Christian life is to grow beyond the temptation and actually have something of value to offer. Anyway, I thought that was pretty practical. Hope it's a blessing to you. If it is, let us know how it blessed you. God bless. See you next week.